Hello everyone. Today we're going to discuss describing double line graphs, um, the analysis part. Well, the title and the introduction will remain the same as for the bar charts. It's the same for any kind of graphs, but the analysis is different. So what you need to include in the double line graph description is the overall trend and changes for both lines, major periods, and changes happening within these periods, similarities and differences, and statistics. Well, let's take a look at this double line graph. We can see that it is about steel. Steel is kind of metal, right? And of course, it's written here demand for steel, but in fact it compares two things. See these two lines, they compare two things: the amount of steel produced is a blue line, and the actual demand. And it shows the development of these trends from January to December, means within a year. And the amount is shown in millions tons. So the purpose of this graph is to compare these two things, because there are two lines that compare the development of two things: the amount produced and the actual demand. Yeah, so the overall trend. What is the overall trend? The overall trend is something when we compare the beginning of the line and the end. All right. Of course, the lines go up and down, up and down. However, when we talk about overall trend, we need to look at the beginning of the graph. Take a look at this red circle. That's the beginning of the graph, beginning of the amount produced. In January, it was 4,000 million tons, right? And then in December, it became lower than 1,000 million tons. So what's the overall trend? Overall, it decreased, right, from 4,000 to 1,000 million tons. So let's take a look at the actual demand. It started with 2,000 million tons, and in December, it became also 2,000. You see, even though it was going up and down, increasing, decreasing, but it just ended up in the same at the same point as it was in January. So overall, there was no change. So here are some fronts. Yeah, that's what is meant by the overall trend. And of course, when we say that, we can mention some statistics. Yeah. So when it comes to amount produced, it dropped from January to December by 3,200 million tons. All right, and then we need to describe the rest of the graph, right? But of course, you can like look at every other up and down, up and down, up and down, and stuff like that. However, it's easier to break it down into some parts so that it's easier for you to describe it. So when you look at similarities first, you can take a look at these two lines and see where they look similar. Maybe not exactly the same, but similar, right? Where they follow similar trends. And actually, there are two of them. Like here, the first one, they're both increasing. And in this second one, there were a couple of things going on, but the trends look similar. And when we talk about them, we use the language of similarity. Of course, you should know it by now. Then when you talk about differences, again, we break it down into parts. We see where the lines look completely different. Again, there are two parts, this one and at the end. And we use all this language of contrast. right? To talk about differences. And remember, when you do that, you mention statistics, numbers as well. Okay, let's take a look at this analysis for this graph. You can pause the video and see what can be improved. Yeah, what is good and what can be improved in this analysis. Well, let's begin with what's good. There is a language of changes, yeah, like increased, again, increased, dropped, remained unchanged, which is good, right? And there is some statistics in the beginning of the analysis. What can be changed is there's no language of comparison. We have here two lines, means the purpose is to compare, right? But there is no language of comparison whatsoever. And then when we talk about changes, say dropped or increased, again increased, how big were the changes? Did it increase slightly or significantly? Was there a drastic drop or just a tiny drop, right? You need to mention how big the changes are. And what's missing is a general trend as well. Yeah, there's nothing about general trend. It's just the graph is described up, down, up, down, up, down. There are no linking words to connect sentences and ideas. And again, there's not enough statistics. The person mentioned some statistics in the beginning, but then was not consistent with that. Well, that's all for now. Feel free to ask questions.